Hello, everyone. I'm Jill, and this is my friend Teresa Listen. And Teresa helps people, women in particular,
Mhm.
although we are also people, transition through their lives and thrive, really, really embrace that transition so that everything that comes out of it is the best that it can be. And
Mhm.
as those of you who know me well know, this has been a year of transition for me as I have let big parts of my life go. So little things that have been on the back burner for a while could bubble up and take over. So
Mm.
Teresa and I are going to have a conversation about what's going on in our lives. And we're happy that you're all here to listen to us.
Yes, we are.
So, Teresa, I gave up a business that I'd been running for just over 20 years this year. And my colleague friend Tara and I have been working on a couple of things. We started during COVID. Um, we both have a background in massage therapy and wellness,
Mhm.
and we really felt that there was a need for different ways for wellness providers to learn about things, to access information, get their continuing educational credits, and of all the things, and I know you work with a lot of women in this particular genre of work, it's really hard when you make your living touching people one on one
Mm. Mhm.
to thrive financially and to have
Mm.
a stable, resilient practice. So, what are some of the things you tell people when you talk to them and they're working through some of these things?
Well, my starting point is always my simple tool, my powerful tool of a Gallup strengths assessment. So I
Mm.
always bring people to that starting point because once we have that result, then we can kind of figure out what you are really strongest at, what your superpowers are, as I like to call them, and what you bring to the world. Because sometimes what we have as our gifts, we don't realize they're gifts because they're so easy, they're so organic for us. We just think like, yeah, that can't possibly be anything special, but it is. It's just so easy for us that we think everybody thinks like that. But we all know that we really don't all think the same, but we
Right.
kind of think we do, you know?
Yeah. I it's funny that you say the Gallup thing because I have just pulled mine out. I did it probably 7 or 8 years ago. I'm going to send it to you after this
Yeah,
call
please. I'd
just for
love
fun.
that.
I pulled it out because I talked to someone else who does a lot of stuff around the Gallup strength assessments, and I'm gonna find mine and show it to you because I remember doing it like quite a long time ago when the book first came out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Yeah.
got to be 10 years ago, maybe even longer. I remember doing it, and and I wrote a bunch of notes on the back of the printouts, and reading them now is really, I was at a different place. But
Yes.
when I read back what the strengths were, I'm like, oh, that is so me. And I
Mm-hmm.
had totally forgotten to celebrate those things about myself.
Yes. Yes. You are so right. Again, we don't realize how unique and special we are until we get this like third party, non-partial, objective assessment printout. And I found them to be spot on with every single person. They will always get reminded, or it's almost just like a reminder, reminding us of who we are and what we bring to the world. And so it's really nothing new. It's just a way of articulating and a way of awareness and reminding us that we are pretty awesome. We are pretty special. There's nobody else on the planet like us.
Yeah.
Literally, there is absolutely nobody with our lineup of strengths or superpowers, as I like to call them. But that would be my starting point to get back to your question. I can't wait to dig into yours. Um, but so my job is to interpret those strengths, and we focus on your top 10 strengths. That's your zone of genius. We all want to be living in that zone of genius. So once I see your top 10, I can kind of get a feel for what you start everything with. Like if you're a strategic thinker,
I am.
meaning you're all in your head.
Strategic is one of
Everything
mine.
is, yeah, this is most important to you. This is where you're most productive. This is where you're most energized by what's going on in your head. Or you could be a dominant executor, meaning you like to get things done. You got a list of things. And
Right.
every day the list starts over, and
Yeah.
people want to just go, go, go. You could be a relationship builder. I'm a dominant relationship builder. I do
Oh, that
everything.
resonates. When you say that, that resonates about you with me. When
Oh,
you say
yeah.
relationship builder, I'm like, you are.
Yeah, I get energized by being with people. I've learned collaboration is where I'm shine my best. Once I had that realization after learning that from my report, I try to use that as much as possible. Get other people involved with whatever I'm doing. I've learned that I can brainstorm and come up with better ideas when I'm talking with somebody, even if it's one-on-one or in a small group. When I'm by myself, not so much. But when I'm bouncing ideas off of other people, that's where I really get a lot of my creativity to kick in. Or you could also be an influencer, meaning not in terms of like what we know of as influencers on social media, although it could be that way, but a person who wants to move people from point A to point B. It energizes them to move people along their path, and they can see every step along the way to help get that person there. So that's an influencer. But what we do is I categorize your top 10 strengths into one of these, one or two of those domains, we call them, or themes is what Gallup calls them. And once I have that information, then I can help we can come up together with some suggestions and maybe a little path to follow, or at a minimum, the very first action you could take, in the next 24 to 48 hours. So it's a stepping stone. It's a starting point to get you moving towards something that's going to feel really good to you. You're going to feel really energized. You're going to wake up excited every day because you have a better understanding of yourself. Did that answer your question? Does that?
Yeah, I love that. I love also the immediacy of 24 to 48 hours,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
right? Because so often we come up with a plan and the plan requires a plan and it
Mm-hmm.
takes 3 weeks to implement that plan
Yep.
and the 24 to 48 hours just sort of anchors in
Mm-hmm.
changes we need to make in our life in order for us to be somewhere different than we
Yeah.
are right now.
And it's not so intimidating and overwhelming. Everybody can do one thing. The simplest thing you could do to kind of gain some momentum
Yeah.
is the easiest starting point. And we don't have to know every single step. We just need to know that next one.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next one after that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I could talk myself out of anything. I don't know about you, but if I don't take action within the next 24 to 48 hours, yeah, I can talk myself out of it.
Well, and I feel like sometimes I'm a void. So once I get a good idea and I start working with it and going with it, that's great. That I'm doing something and I've got a task. And I'm very task oriented and I like to be finished things. I like to close my circles, as David Allen says, in getting things done.
Mm-hmm.
My circles do best when they're closed. But if I don't have anything going on, then I end up with 15 things I must do,
Yeah.
15 paths I must follow, 15 can't
Mm-hmm.
fit ideas. So by coming up with something in a next step, it keeps you focused, I feel like, so that
Yeah.
you don't end up with a shotgun approach to
Yes. Yes.
changing your life. And then you've got a relationship in upheaval and a
Mm-hmm.
house in upheaval and buying a car and all the things it might possibly do that cause chaos.
And I don't mean to giggle, but yes, I mean, you're talking to everybody, basically. We all
Yeah.
have felt like that at some point. But it just knowing, I mean, I know that from firsthand experience, the knowledge and understanding, even if it's a little understanding of your strengths lineup or your superpowers, is just so empowering. I mean, it helped me feel better about myself, see my value, see my worth. Whereas prior to that, it was just always, yeah, I'm not good enough. I don't have anything of value to offer like that. So it really helped me become stronger in that. Now, in terms of a woman in transition, stepping into the next chapter, I think there's a lot of uncertainty that comes with that.
Mm,
And, you really don't know where to go or what is that next step. Whereas if you have some information behind you, and some really good way of articulating your superpowers. And that didn't come out very well, but it kind of, again, gives you a little bit of confidence to start moving in some kind of direction
right.
instead of being, like you said, like chaotic and you're all over the place and just don't know where to turn. Then this gives you that starting point. And I also think women in transition, they have some loss of identity going on. Like their
On my
identity is now
business,
attached to that previous phase.
I grieved when I closed my business,
Oh, I bet you did.
right? I'd been doing it for 20 some odd years, raised my kids through it, like all the
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And then it wasn't my choice. It was totally my choice.
Mm-hmm.
But I was not prepared for the grief, to be honest. Like it doesn't feel like you should grieve a lifestyle choice or a business or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But ooh, and it really sandbagged me because I wasn't prepared for it.
Mm-hmm.
So then I'm going through all these things. And I've got exciting new projects and things I really like and people I like working with, but I had no energy because I was in a state of grief.
Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that because I retired. When I retired from teaching, I didn't really feel anything until that next fall when everybody else was going back to school and I wasn't. That's when my grief kicked in. And I didn't label it as such then, but it was just like the weirdest thing. And sometimes I think we don't allow ourselves to grieve or to think about that thing, that loss and what we gave up and that identity that we now have to recreate or reinvent or find new. So I think maybe it's important to give ourselves grace, give ourselves that period of time and allow ourselves to feel those feelings. And yeah, just
And to
like
name
moving
them.
cross country. I moved cross country a couple years ago and I never really grieved about leaving that prior life behind. So I, for myself, also don't give myself the grace of grieving. So yeah, this is an important thing to bring to people's awareness, I think.
And there is something to be said for, stiff upper lip and moving on and moving
Yes.
through things.
Yes.
But I think that it's not authentic to move through things and move on if we don't also honor both the good and the
Mhm,
bad of
mhm,
the things that we've left, whether it's a relationship or a job or a home with friends
mhm,
around you,
mhm,
even even just the decisions that you have to make in a new life.
mhm.
You have to figure out what you do in the morning. Like,
Yep, new
'cause it's a different,
routines, yep.
right? And all of
Mhm,
those decisions are decisions instead of habits. And it's also,
mhm.
I think, very um to combine the two, the grief and the trying to, claw your way into a new space. What a what a horrible thing to go through without someone to coach you through it.
Correct, correct. That's what I was just thinking of, like, yeah, this is where it's helpful to have somebody to help pull you up, help you bridge that gap into that new life. Because we've all gone through it. It's just to have a little bit of a support person to help you get through it, maybe a little bit faster or with a little bit a different perspective, and then give you some tools to really move forward in a positive way. Um, but I wanted to circle back around to when you said close the rings. You have to close the rings and the whole grieving process and knowing that you need to give yourself some space and some time to close those rings. You can always come back to them, open them back up a little bit,
Yep.
and, go through it again. But yeah, maybe just a support person to help you close those rings and go forward with enthusiasm and excitement into the next chapter.
So when you work with someone, how does that work? When I'd call you and I'd say, Teresa, I'm thinking about changing my life. And then and you would say, yay.
Yep.
And truthfully, when I chose to change my life, a large part of it was I've been doing it for so long. I was kind of bored with myself.
Yep.
I was sort of bored with my life. I was bored
Yep.
with myself. Nothing was just really making me excited to get up. And I was unhappy with dealing with people in the way that I had, just some seeping of boundaries and that kind of thing. And I really needed to just figure out where I wanted to be for the next part of my life. So if I had known you then, I would have called you up, and what would have happened?
Well,
You would have said, hey, Jill.
yeah. Well, I would have directed you to the Gallup assessment, which you already have. And it almost sounds like we need to have a second conversation once I get your strengths report in my hands. And then we could talk about that in
Yeah,
another episode, another
another
part, if you're
episode.
open to that. That'd
Of
be
course,
awesome.
I'm open to that.
But once I had that, I can see, I can offer you what I'm seeing. And
Yeah.
then you would validate, confirm, deny, whatever, what is true for you and what resonates with you. And then we would just move from that forward and see if we can figure out a plan or that next action step. But just getting the clarity is huge.
Mm,
Just getting more clarity on, like I said, I'm a relationship builder. When I got clarity that it energizes me to be with people on a regular basis. And once I had that realization, it kind of helped me start to move in that direction. And it helped me make some different decisions that I might have made in the past. Like as a strategic thinker, if that's your dominant domain, just that realization and awareness that you need some quiet time, you need time alone, you need thinking time. Like I have both of those as a dominant domain. My relationship building is a little bit more than my strategic thinking, but I've learned that I have to balance the two. I have to
yeah.
have my people time and I have to have my alone time. But if I get too much of either one of them, then my energy is low and it's
Like a
diminished.
souffle that you take out of the oven too early and it just falls
Exactly.
right down.
So there's that balancing act that now I'm aware of. So just
Right.
having that awareness can be empowering enough for you to make some different choices.
So tell me about how you work with people. Do you work with them in groups? Like you mostly work over Zoom, or you mostly work face to face?
Oh yeah, Zoom is my platform right now.
I
So
Even my doctors do Zoom, and I flip and love it because it
mm-hmm.
means I don't have to go and
Yep.
struggle through
Yep.
traffic, and it means when I leave my house, it's intentional for something fun.
I mean, the connection can be just as strong. I've had lots of relationships I've created on Zoom, and they're just as meaningful as my in-person relationships.
Yeah.
I mean, there is something to be said about being able to hug somebody in person, but even when that's not possible, there's as a person, I appreciate and take advantage of a Zoom connection. So Zoom is where I would play with a
Like a
person.
big group of people getting together for drinks or dinner and having those Zooming conversations across the table doesn't translate well to Zoom to me. But
Um,
all these one-on-one conversations to me are great over Zoom.
mhm. I don't know. I've been in some group Zoom meetings that are very conversational and very insightful. And again, it could be because I'm a relationship person. And so I love seeing other people's comments or hearing what they have to say. So I'm okay with it. But maybe it depends on the facilitator or the person in charge and a person like such as yourself on the other end, how they operate the best.
Yeah.
Maybe a group situation isn't the best for them. But yeah, one-on-one is a really good starting point for me. And
Yeah.
then maybe, a group situation after that. Now, there are people that have relator very high, which is a person who prefers just a small circle of friends, and they're very uncomfortable in a group setting. So once we know that and that's confirmed and validated, then that person probably would do best one-on-one over a series of sessions, not in a group situation.
Now, just because most of my listeners on this channel are in the wellness profession, and a lot of those professions have deadlines, sort of. Your arms, you kind of wear out.
Yes.
Your elbows and your wrists and your thumbs, especially in massage therapy, but
Mhm.
reflexology too. But tell me about like how you work with people that they're trying to figure out what to do next, and they're really in that kind of profession. Like, what would your so we're going to start with the Gallup assessment, but
Mhm.
other than that, what else do you find is useful information for people who are looking for a way to use the skills they've already got, but tweak them so they last longer, or they've got more than one stream of income?
That's a really good question. I just think it's so individualized. I don't know if I could give a blanket suggestion or statement or comment. It literally depends on that where that person wants to be, what their goals are, so I would think I'd have to look at the whole picture, have that conversation with that individual, and really, again, look at their strengths, their zone of genius, what energizes them, what brings them joy, and then figure it out from there. And what other skill set they have. I mean, you have more skills and more things
Yeah,
that you have to offer people other than a physical massage, correct?
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And I haven't, even when I was doing massage or had a massage therapy practice, mostly my staff did that. I'm a talker. I really
Mhm.
like a line of patter. And
Mhm.
so and to me, when you're giving or getting a massage, either way, it's a silent thing. Like, I don't
Mhm.
like somebody yattering at me when I'm getting a massage. And I find it really hard to listen to somebody's body
Mm.
telling me what's going on if the person themselves is very chattery. Now, sometimes they're chattery and that tells you everything you need to know. There's some nervousness or anxiety, but when you're trying to listen to those wee little muscles in there, those little tiny knots, and figure out where you need to go, to me, massage is very silent. So I really do love the I do love the chatter.
Um, so, and I'm thinking like when I get massages, I probably chitter chatter a little bit too much. And what is
But
that telling the
everybody's different.
person
And
working on me? But
I know that lots of massage therapists prefer to have that. I just like the way I personally work is silent.
Mhm.
The way I shouldn't say that. The way I work best is silent.
Mhm.
Because somebody starts telling me their problems, it's a little bit of I don't know, but I always want to try and help them find the solution to those problems.
Right.
Help them think through the problem all the way so they can feel what their next step should be,
Mhm.
which is different than working on their body.
Right. And yeah, and I love that you're creating that environment, that space for them to feel more in that silent environment. And that's a really intimate space to be in with people.
It really
And
is.
you're almost, even if you're chitter chattery or silent, you're still conveying and exchanging energy that both of you are picking up on.
Yeah,
And so holding that space with respect and love is a real sacred space, I think. So I think that could be done online. You're not touching people, but just setting up the energetics in whatever path you follow is doable online on Zoom as well. But again, I can't give any specifics to, in my mind, I'm just thinking like, oh yeah, that can be done. You just have to be very intentional with what you do. And I've met a lot of people online in my networking who are into the healing arts. I
Mhm.
mean, it was just amazing to me how many people are doing a business, and I'm talking online space because that's where I'm at right now. Um, in that healing arts, like I was actually shocked and stunned how many people put their shingle out as a
Yeah.
person who's a healer.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, well, and lots of professions work better than that, than massage therapy for that. Obviously, massage massage is not doesn't really translate to, you know, online.
Right, exactly.
But some of the other things that we do for people, I think, even just listening to people feels like a healing art at this
Oh
moment.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Listening and you're acknowledging them, you're seeing them for them being themselves. Um, yeah, and that's very healing in and of itself. But
Mhm.
just what you bring a massage person would bring to the table or whatever space. I'm just saying that, not the literal table, the,
Right. Yeah,
the
yeah,
figurative
yeah.
table. Wisdom. You have lots of wisdom and knowledge about the physicality of a body and the emotions that are held within that body. And so I think just sharing wisdom and knowledge about that and the mindfulness piece and the intention piece, I think that's missing for a lot of people, that
Yeah.
tapping into that inner sanctuary, even if you're not physically with them and they're in front of you on the table.
Yeah, there's, I don't know, a lot of talk in the last little bit about that, the epidemic of loneliness and how lonely
Yes,
people
yes,
are
yeah.
feeling. And I think whether you're in a big group or with one-on-one with someone, if you don't feel seen and heard, you're
Mhm,
alone.
mhm. That's
And
good,
if you
good
do
point.
feel seen and heard, even when you're alone, like we're both alone in our spaces at this time, you
Mhm,
don't feel lonely and alone because somebody is seeing you.
mhm,
Somebody is hearing you. Somebody is connecting to you.
mhm. And you could be in
That's,
a room of 100 people and still feel alone. I know I've
yeah,
felt that way.
yeah, yeah. When you're the person on the side with your glass of wine going,
Yep,
who's gonna
yep,
talk to
and
me?
yep, and nobody's really paying attention. And I mean, I know it's an effort on both sides. I mean, you know, I would have to get up and interact with somebody instead of waiting for them to come to me. But yeah, it can be lonely whether you got people around you or whether you don't.
So what's next for you, Teresa? What's your big thing gonna go into the last, we're in
Oh
kind of going into
no.
the last quarter of the year. Is
Mm.
there a big challenge that you want to overcome or something really exciting coming up?
I want to have more value served in a bigger way, impact more people. So I'm trying to do more online offerings, like collaborations. I'm in a collaboration
Oh,
right now with
you and
somebody.
I are going to collaborate. I'm going to tell you about it after this call. I've got
Yay!
a thing.
But I have a collaboration in with a wellness fitness person who we're starting up actually next month.
Oh,
So
nice.
I can serve a lot of people, but I really want to, again, impact more with collaborations and um, serve in a bigger way, offer more value. And I really need to do a lot of educating so that people understand the power of knowing their own personal superpowers or their strengths. I can say it, I could talk about it, but it takes some understanding to see the power of it. So I have to really educate a lot of people so they can have that more that better understanding. So they're like, oh yeah, I'm ready to take it. Let's do it. Let's go.
Yeah.
So I actually am doing every week, me and another friend of mine, we're reading reports right online on live TV, just so people can see the process.
Oh, reading their Gallup reports?
Yes, yes.
Oh, how
Instead
fun.
of telling you about it, we're actually looking at somebody's report, that no, we don't know who they are. We're just looking at it and we're just going through and talking about and pulling out what we see in there about that particular person. So if that's somebody which you're interested in, we're doing that. We're streaming that live into Facebook right now because trying to figure out how to get that live in other platforms. But and that's called Decoding Your Superpowers is the name of that event.
I love it.
So that's always fun. It just energizes me. Looking at somebody's report is so energizing, so fun for me. I love it.
Yeah, it's almost like you get a sneak peek at who they are,
Exactly. It's almost
right?
like a little open book, like,
Like you
oh,
can see them before they even see themselves.
yes, yes. And it's so fun to allow them shine a light on those superpowers for them so they can see it for themselves. That's really the fun part is allowing or seeing somebody light up with some inspiration and some new insights like, oh, that is how I am, because they didn't think about it before.
Yeah.
So that's so fun. Love it.
So I don't so I did my Gallup thing. And then I'm going to move on because I don't want to bore anyone with this, but I did mine from the book Strength Finder.
Yes. Yep.
So I only know my top 5, I think.
Okay. Well, that's because Gallup, that's all they kind of focus on. So you
Is it
can
top
get
5?
the 5 or you can open up the 10. The 10 is what I prefer because I can see more patterns. With
Yeah.
5, you're very limited. We can guess, but when you see all 34, there's definitely patterns that
Well,
we
and
can
like
talk about.
you're right, because I looked at all, like I read the whole book because that's how I am.
Mhm.
And most of them, even though they didn't show up, I'm like, oh, I have a little bit of that. Why was that
Mhm.
on my list? Or I'd be like, oh, that's definitely not that's definitely on my list. Like I have lots of superpowers. I think we all do.
Yep. Yep.
There are things that I just like, I can't clean my house. I have no interest. It's just, like there's things if I actually had a magic fairy, it would just be the
Yeah.
bathtub
Bewitched.
right
The little
behind
bewitched twitch. Yeah.
my house would be clean. That's what I'd like as my superpower. But yeah, I'd love to have another call around that. But I also have, I think what we should do is Tara and I are doing, now I'm going to just tell the world. Tara and I, Tara, my partner and I are going to do a summit but it's not really a summit because summits, for those of you who don't know, they tend to be a lot of speakers and
Yep.
a lot of like offers and la 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 la.
Yes.
And I am a person who doesn't do well with that. I download them all and I never open them.
Yeah.
Or there's somebody that I really liked, and for the life of me, I can't remember their name. And so then I can't go back and get the information that was valuable to me in that, whatever.
Yep.
So we're going to do one in January. We're going to call it Core Connection. It's going to be
Ooh.
for wellness providers, but it's going to be 3 days, but only 6 speakers.
Mm.
So that every speaker gets to do like teaching, and then we'll do like breakout groups so you can get right into it,
Yep.
and then come back and talk about it. And I think you should be one of our people because I think that would be
Oh.
I think that would be so, like, it would be so interesting. And of course you wouldn't have to share anybody's information if it was if that was not their choice. You could
Right.
ask them because some people would feel very exposed and vulnerable, I suspect, if you just said, oh, your superpower is this.
Now I've never seen, and I am honored for you to, talk about that right now. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. But I've noticed that it may be a vulnerability there, but I would guess, and what I've seen is most people are like just in awe of what they're hearing about themselves. It's empowering is the word that I always come back to. I've seen people cry when they hear somebody such as myself or another coach shine a light on their superpowers so they can see it for the first time and hear it from somebody else's mouth. I mean, it is so life transforming, and it shifts so many people. The yes, vulnerability, I don't think I've ever seen. It's more of a, oh my gosh, like yeah, I am like that. And they really want to own that and embrace that for themselves.
Yeah, I wrote down some notes on how we're gonna do that in our summit already. So we'll get back to that. But now we've been talking for almost half an hour. Is there anything you think that we've missed in this particular conversation?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we did cover a lot. And I'm just looking forward to digging into your strengths. But yeah, if any woman just is feeling uncertainty, self-doubt, not sure of who they are anymore, I would love to have a conversation with you, even if it's just a 20-minute conversation, without even digging into your actual assessment, because there is a cost involved in the assessment that we have to pay Gallup.
Yeah,
Gallup gets that money.
Gallup has it
Um,
licensed.
yeah, yeah. So there is that initial investment, but even if you don't want to do that initial investment, I do have a little quiz that I could ask you 5 little questions, and we can get a little teeny weeny tip of the iceberg idea of maybe where you might fall. And, if it resonates, then we can move forward with that. But yeah, I would love to have a conversation. Reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. I have a YouTube channel where
And
hopefully you're
if you're
seeing this.
getting this from
Yes.
our standpoint, from the Wellness Pro standpoint, all of her links will be underneath this
Yes.
talk
Yes, for
so that
sure.
you can find her easily. We really
Mhm.
believe that everyone should be findable
Mhm.
when they come on the show, that people that talk to us are
Mhm.
interesting. And if they're interesting, you want to be able to track them down.
Yeah, yeah.
And we like to make things easy.
And yeah, for sure. And don't feel afraid to reach out to me or anybody. We all want to help pull other people up. We all want to extend a hand down. If I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for people supporting me and bringing me up with what they have to offer, and just all those hands pulling us up to a higher level. I mean,
Mhm.
we can't do this alone. We could try, but it's going to take a really long time.
Yeah.
So much quicker. And I wish I had people 30 years ago helping me go move a little bit faster.
Well, and honestly, I wish I had let people help me,
Yeah, that's a good one. Yes, exactly.
right? Like I wish I had known to ask for help and to let help find me.
Oh, I love that. And as women, we don't always let people help us. We have this misconception that we have to do it alone. We have to be women. We have to do it all, you know, bring home the bacon, take care of the kids, all that. That's like a
Absolutely.
badge of honor instead
And
of letting people help us.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that.
Oh, and on that note of wisdom from Jill, we'll wind it up, hey?
Sure. Yeah.
And then we'll attach, like I said, all of the links to find things. We'll when our magazine is ready, the links will be in for that, and we'll have summit links as well, because Teresa's going to be one of our partners, and you'll be able to find us and get the next finish this year right, get the next year set up right.
Yeah,
Life will be
for
grand.
sure. And thank you so much, Jill. This has been fun. I feel honored and privileged to be here. So thank you for this opportunity.
I love it. Thank you, Teresa. Have a great day.
Okay, bye everybody.